As one of the most outspoken and influential voices in the new age media, Joe Rogan has found himself at the center of some of the most explosive interviews of all time, and we're going to talk about some of the most heated ones, starting with his interview with Adam Canova. Adam Canova was a comedian best known for hosting his hit TV show Adam Ruins Everything that launched in 2015. Around the time of the interview, the show was True TV's second highest rated program, but it was abruptly cancelled in October 2019, just 6 months after his controversial interview with Joe Rogan, where he publicly voiced his support for trans men competing in female sports.
Sports with trans athletes who are, competing with with their gender, right? That is a sporting world that I'm more interested in.
Rogan, however, strongly disagreed with Adam's stance and argued that the physical difference between men and women are a crucial factor in competitive sports.
The reason is that males have a physiological advantage over women. So in most sports, most physical sports, we do not have males compete with females. The question becomes when someone who is male transitions and becomes female, do those same physiological advantages apply? Males that transition to females have a significant advantage and they're breaking world records. So if you're a woman, you're doing your very best to compete and you're at the top of the heap, but then someone comes along that was a man for 30 years and decides they're going to be a woman, and this has happened, and competes as a woman and destroys records and dominates you in that sport. That's bullshit.
The conversation takes a more intense turn as Adam shares his support for children as young as 7 years old who choose to transition. He argues that starting the transition process early on can be beneficial and further qualifies transgenders in sports divisions that align with their identified gender.
Accept and support, right? You're seeing folks transition much earlier age. If someone is transitioning from the age of 7 years old, right? Working with those hormones, from that age, right? They're not going to have, their body situation is going to be very different than the one that you postulated, right?
Joe Rogan continues to argue against Adam's point, explaining the harm that it could cause on children.
There's no reason to give kids hormones, and there's no reason to decide before a person's frontal lobe is completely fully developed. People don't even give their 7-year-old phones. You don't let them vote. You're going to let them decide what sex they're going to be for the rest of their life?
As the conversation continued, it became clear that he lacked depth and substance in his knowledge on the topics he was discussing, as he repeatedly failed to provide credible research to support his claims, seemingly thumb-sucking them from the top of his head.
Because... I'm sorry, can you expand on the question?
If you say that the child thinks it's a girl, so you're going to give the child hormones. If the child thinks it's a girl, let it be a girl. And you're affecting the child's development. You're saying that's not a choice. That's nonsense. Of course it's a choice.
This debate has probably become a dead topic ever since Trump's executive order declaring that there are only 2 genders in the United States. But while the interview with Adam Canova was extremely controversial, the next one is probably the most controversial interview in Joe Rogan history, especially considering the person who was being interviewed. Candace Owens usually has some really good takes, such as her recent takedown of Nick Cannon, where she cleverly used PDF files as an analogy to highlight the issue of biological males calling themselves women and biological females calling themselves men.
Are you going to apologize, Nick? Are you going to have him on your podcast? Don't you understand how they feel on the inside when you say that they can't have sex with 8-year-olds?
That is a hell of a point.
She managed to make Nick Cannon concede, however she was completely off the mark during her 2018 interview with Joe Rogan, which sparked intense controversy after she made a shocking claim denying the existence of climate change.
Do I believe in climate change? No.
You don't believe in climate change?
No.
She then argues that the research and information on climate change are driven by a desire for scientists to get funding rather than a genuine pursuit for facts and change.
I think that was just a way to extract dollars from Americans. I don't at all believe. They had no actionable plan. It was great for Trump to get out of that deal. It was terrible. I personally think that some scientists started talking about global warming and it got politicized and they figured it was another way to extract human beings' money because of fear. That's my opinion.
Joe Rogan was clearly taken aback by Owen's blunt assertion that climate change is actually not real. The exchange becomes increasingly heated, with Rogan visibly frustrated by Owen's lack of credible evidence to support her stance.
You would have to talk to a bunch of different scientists and see how they gather data and see what they understand about CO2 levels and what's the danger of them and what can combat it and what could not. Have you done all this, or
No,
do you
so I
take
think-
this flippant opinion
No,
based
listen,
on the
I'm
party
not. This
line?
is not.
Rogan firmly pushes back against Owen's claims, emphasizing the gravity of her words and the potential harm they can cause and how her influence can change the opinions of many.
Even if you're right, you don't have enough information to say that. Don't say you don't believe.
Yeah.
Learn about it.
Yeah.
Learn about it and then have an opinion. But you're stating this opinion without having any real understanding of
Right.
what climate
Well, yeah,
science
because
is.
it's. But
Her stance on climate change is rooted in her skepticism of science, which she has described as a pagan faith.
I'm not a flat earther. I'm not a round earther. Actually, what I am somebody who has left the cult of science. I have left the mega church of science because what I have now realized is that science, what it is actually, if you think about it, is a pagan faith.
But while Candace Owens had an outrageous take on climate change, the next interview with Eddie Bravo took things to another level due to his opinion on the earth being flat.
It looks like something you'd see in a movie.
That's because when they do it in a movie, they try to make it look like this, which is what
man.
looks real.
If that's real to you, man, shit.
Joe Rogan then proceeded to demand an image of the flat earth.
Is there a
flat.
photo of this flat earth?
No, I don't. Like I just said again.
That's what I asked.
Is there a photo of
there's
this?
no photo of the flat Earth from space. There's no photo of the round Earth from.
Eddie Bravo's flat earth theory, much like Candace Owens, seems to stem from a deep-seated mistrust of the US government. He believes that the notion of a round earth, man landing on the moon, and even religion are all part of a complex system designed to control and manipulate citizens.
I think all governments, most of them, the globalists, they're all working together to control their
What's
their
the
people.
advantage?
They control you, bro. Keep you on a. There's. I don't know, man. I don't know what it is.
The conversation takes a dramatic turn as Eddie, feeling cornered and defensive, makes a shocking accusation claiming that Rogan's sources are being paid to spread misinformation, further fueling the conspiracy.
No.
Hey,
'cause
where
you're-
did you get this information?
Jamie.
Where'd you get it?
It's coming off the internet.
Exactly.
The American
So
the
you're
American
reading
Journal-
some information. I'm reading some information
down, slow
off
down,
the internet.
Slow
You
down.
didn't go to the
Slow
library.
down. Slow
Oh,
down.
it's on Wikipedia.
Just slow down.
Eddie, stop
There's
doing that.
sources here. There's a book called the American Journal of Science. I'm sure that a lot of people respect
Which is
that.
bought and paid for.
Well, maybe.
Joel's frustration reaches a boiling point when Eddie takes it a step further, asserting that the earth doesn't spin, leaving Joe stunned.
If you look into the experiments to prove that the Earth is spinning, all of them failed. Einstein said it.
Don't
There is
bring
no
him into
proof
this.
that we're moving. Why are you getting mad?
Because you don't look into what scientists say. You just automatically
You don't
dismiss
know what
them
I'm
all as
looking
corrupt.
at.
There's so many people working on these things, Eddie. The idea that they're all in on some sort of a giant global lie is insane.
Yeah. That's what everyone thinks.
Okay.
Joe Rogan's interview with Eddie Bravo, however, would not compare to one of his most heated and controversial arguments with political commentator Milo Yiannopoulos concerning the role of Christianity in the modern world.
Everywhere that doesn't have a strong Christian heritage is a fucked up place with bad morals.
That's a ridiculous statement.
I believe our culture is better
Our
than everywhere
culture,
else in the
the
world.
culture-
As the conversation goes on, Milo challenges Rogan on being dismissive with regards to Christianity, even calling him an a-hole.
You can disagree with everything that they teach. You can say that it's nonsense. What
Consequences?
you shouldn't do is ridicule and dismiss. My point is simply and only that if you're going to be a flippant asshole, at least acknowledge that, first of all, half the population, does take this stuff seriously. And second of all, this is important stuff that tells us about who we are.
The conversation gets personal as Rogan confronts Milo about his sexuality, calling him out for what he sees as hypocrisy.
But who you are, being a gay
That's not
man
who I am. It's
that's
how I behave.
promiscuous,
It's what I do.
But that is
this is-
prohibited in the Bible.
Yes. I don't think my sexuality is an important
It's a
component of my
huge part of you. You talk about it all the time.
Well,
It's a massive
talk about it
part
all
of
the
what
time,
we've talked about on the show.
I think
It comes up anytime you want to make a funny point. It comes up anytime you
true,
want
I
to
do rely
define
on
your
it- I do rely on it for humor,
sexuality
don't I?
or your urges or
I do rely on it for
your
humor.
decadence.
In an attempt to defend himself, Milo compares his self-deprecating humor about being gay to black comedians like Chris Rock, making jokes about being black, basically equating the Christian immorality of homosexuality to the struggles of being black.
It's why black comedians talk about being black a lot. Chris Rock always talks about, blacks and the N-word. It's why, Muslim comedians only ever talk about Islam. It's, gay comedians talk about being gay. I think that's, you go to that because it's the most different, funny thing about you.
Obviously, religion is always a touchy subject, which is why the comment sections were full of comments such as, "I did think Joe Rogan was smarter than this." Joe is usually good at debating with reason, and he's usually very calm, so it's very easy to notice when he's not using reason anymore because it's the few times he'll get angry, religion and drugs. I mean, I'm atheist, but you have to admit there have been huge influences on our culture due to religion. And he is right. For the most part, we have been better for it. The topic of sexuality sparks another heated debate, this time with Joe Rogan's guest Matt Walsh, who is also a political commentator and was the creator of the hit documentary What is a Woman? Matt openly shares his opposition to gay marriage and argues that gay marriage goes against the traditional definition of marriage as a union between a man and a woman, and that the purpose for marriage should be procreation.
I think of marriage as is a certain thing, which is the context for procreation, for the building of the nuclear family.
Joe firmly argues that gay marriage has no negative impact on traditional marriages. In fact, he claims that the legalization of gay marriage is simply a matter of equality and personal freedom.
I don't think gay people and gay people getting married in any way, shape, or form changes a bond that you have with your wife. It's just called marriage. If we decide that gay people can get married too, I just don't see how it damages anything.
Walsh responds by emphasizing that the push for gay marriage is not about equality, but about validation and acceptance of a new modern lifestyle, to which Joe responds with the following.
How is that in any way damage straight people?
Because we are making the institution meaningless.
But it's not meaningless.
Well, but
it's very meaningful to the people that have it.
Subjective, symbolic, and it's about your own personal feelings.
Isn't it though?
Well, no, I would say that it's not.
Well, if it's not subjective and it's not symbolic,
it codifies and protects and gives a name to a thing that actually exists, which are man, woman couples creating people, creating babies.
Joe, however, does not agree that marriage is only made for procreation, so he challenges Walsh.
But if people want to be married and don't want to ever have children, are you opposed to them being married?
Well, I wouldn't advocate a law that would prevent it.
But would it change the definition of what their marriage is to you because they don't want to have a family? They just want to have a loving bond?
I think this would be a couple that is rejecting one of the fundamental aspects of marriage. Yeah, it's a personal choice.
But then why are you opposed to two gay people doing that?
Joe Rogan tends to approach certain societal topics from a science-based atheistic perspective, which is completely fine and acceptable. But oddly enough, science is what led to the heated confrontation with CNN's chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, after CNN ran multiple stories about Joe Rogan promoting animal drugs to cure COVID.
Joe Rogan, who is one of the world's highest paid and most popular podcast hosts, is giving air to anti-vaccine narratives.
Rogan has said young, healthy people don't need to get vaccinated.
Joe Rogan just announced that he's tested positive for coronavirus.
Rogan said he has taken several therapeutics to recover.
And he included ivermectin on the list.
Patients overdosing on ivermectin backing up rural Oklahoma hospitals, ambulances. And the story claimed that a local doctor had said that people taking ivermectin were causing emergency room and ambulance backups. It also suggested that ivermectin was the reason.
In 2022, Joe Rogan faced accusations by CNN of promoting horse dewormer after he stated that he used ivermectin as part of his kitchen sink approach to cure his COVID.
Feeling very weary, I had a headache, and I just felt run down. And I got up in the morning, got tested, and turns out I got COVID. So we immediately threw the kitchen sink at it. All kinds of meds, monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, Z-Pak.
His Instagram post sparked a lot of attention and debates, with many media outlets, especially CNN, misinterpreting his post and emphasizing how he used and encouraged the public to use horse dewormer to relieve them from COVID-19.
With his over 13 million followers, that he's taking the drug ivermectin, meant to treat parasites and worms in horses and other animals. Despite being unproven as a COVID treatment and dangerous for humans in high doses, ivermectin has received a recent boost from online misinformation, prompting warnings from the FDA and other health officials.
Dr. Gupta would later appear on Rogan's podcast to discuss the controversy. However, before the episode aired, CNN published an article accusing Rogan of spreading misinformation.
I'm glad you're better. I'm glad it only lasted a day.
You're probably the only one at CNN that's glad.
None.
The rest of them are all lying about me taking horse medication. And we should talk about that.
That bothered you.
It should bother you too. They're lying at your network about people taking human drugs versus drugs for veterinary.
Calling it a horse dewormer is not a flattering thing. I get that.
It's a lie. That's a lie that they're conscious of. This is not a mistake.
Yeah.
They're unfavorably framing it as veterinary medicine. Why would they lie and say that's horse dewormer? I can afford people medicine, mother. This is ridiculous.
Rogan's concern was if a major news network like CNN could intentionally distort the truth about something as simple as a comedian's Instagram post, how can the public trust their reporting on global social and political issues?
But my point is, you're working for a news organization. If they're lying about a comedian taking horse medication, what are they telling us about Russia? What are they telling us about Syria?
He would then continue to press Dr. Gupta even further.
But don't you think that a lie like that is dangerous on a news network when you know that they know they're lying? You know that they know that I took medicine, like here it is. This is ivermectin.
You got it with
right
you.
here.
Rogan definitely put Dr. Gupta on the spot and even made him sweat a little. But it was his interview with Dave Portnoy that would test his patience even further, as Dave's adamant refusal to acknowledge Tommy Fury as a legitimate boxer sparked a heated exchange.
It's a name only. I saw Tommy Fury box. He is not a boxer.
Dave Portnoy is the founder of Barstool Sports, which publishes sports journalism and pop culture related content. So it's no surprise why he would have such a big opinion on boxer Tommy Fury's boxing. As the brother of former heavyweight champion Tyson Fury, Tommy is no stranger to the spotlight and constant comparisons to his brother's impressive boxing career.
Tommy Fury we would not know who Tommy Fury was if his last name wasn't Fury.
The conversation takes a tense turn as Dave continues to dismiss Tommy's boxing skills, and Rogan reaches his limits, prompting him to pull out a clip of Tommy Fury in action.
Here's Tommy Fury. You telling me this guy doesn't look like a boxer? You're out of your fucking mind. The guy's fighting looks good. Dude, you're crazy if you don't think Tommy Fury's a boxer. Look at that uppercut! Shut the fuck up, dude.
No.
Shut the fuck up. Watch this.
Find
Look,
the Tommy Fury. Find the Tommy Fury fight.
Please shut the fuck up and watch this. Watch what he's doing. This motherfucker is 100% a boxer.
Can you find me the record of
Bokianski? This. Stop.
Dave then makes a bold prediction, claiming that Tommy Fury wouldn't stand a chance against a league fighter like Jake Paul.
I hope they fight because I'll put my net worth on Jake Paul.
What if Tommy Fury boxes him up? What are you going to do then?
He won't.
That bold statement wouldn't end well because a year later in 2023, Tommy Fury would face off against Jake Paul and come out on top.